my name is Karin Skacel, owner of Skacel Collection Incorporated. We are the distributors of the Addi needles in the United States, Schoppel yarns in the United States, Zitron yarns in the United States, and our own line of yarns, which are called the Haiku brand. We have been in business since 1987, at which time my mother actually started the business. She had been an importer for many, many years, and in '87, an opportunity presented itself for her to import yarns from Germany. My mother, being a native German, was of course thrilled with that, and so she started the business importing strictly Schöller Esslinger yarns is what they were. A couple of years later, she decided to import the Addi Turbo needles, and at that point in time, no one really knew what circular knitting was, so she would go to the TNNA shows and she would teach everybody how to knit with circular needles, and before you knew it, they were all the rage. Nowadays, I think you'd find the vast majority of Americans actually knit with circular needles. They're ergonomically better for you, and, well, they're just better all the way around, right? The two things that I value the most are family and honesty. And so I try to surround myself with people who are honest with me. And we take family pretty seriously. We're actually sort of a family at Skacel, but also when something happens, if someone has a sick child or a sick parent or something, I always say family comes first. We are in business, we do want to make money, but it's yarn. We're not talking about life and death here. So values, family, honesty, very important to me in my day-to-day business. There is one question that I'm never asked that I wouldn't mind somebody asking me sometime, and that is, you knit and you crochet. Which do you prefer? I'm going to tell you a dirty little secret. I actually like to crochet better. And it's only because I don't really like to follow patterns too much. I like to create my own patterns as I go along. And with crochet, it is so easy to do because, you know, one wrong row, you just tear it out. You don't have to use lifelines or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy knitting. But if I had to choose between taking a pair of knitting needles or a crochet hook to a deserted island, I'd choose a crochet hook. What has surprised me this week? Well, I think I'm just surprised that I made it through last week. The biggest change for Skacel in the last 30 years, business-wise, has been the internet. The internet has changed our whole industry, actually, and the way we do business. It seems to me that distributorships, such as my company, are less needed than they were before. There are a lot of indie dyers out there, and I think it's fantastic that these women are creating their own businesses. I really do hope that they are paying themselves and taking care of themselves while they are doing so. Sometimes I see these indie dyers or other women in our industry starting businesses, and they don't take care of themselves and they don't pay themselves first. And it's not a business if you don't pay yourself. So, see, now I've gone off on a tangent, but that's very important to me. Our industry is notoriously known for not paying owners and not paying the people who work in it a proper wage. To me, that's really important. And so I make sure that all my employees that are working full-time, and most of them do work full-time, that they have, you know, full medical, dental, vision benefits, that they have some kind of a retirement plan, and also that they get, you know, their vacation time in, so they get some time off and they get to spend time with their family and so on. I think that that's very important. Hands down, the biggest change that's happened to Skacel in the last 30 years is the internet. The internet has changed our industry tremendously. And it's not just our industry, it's every single industry that's out there. So we just need to go with the flow. And competition's a little bit stiffer because of that. We have manufacturers selling directly to the end consumer, and we have shops going directly to get their products made, and it's changed the whole structure. When we first started business, there was a definitive structure. You know, there was the manufacturer who sold to the brand name would sell to a distributor, the distributor would sell to the shop, and the shop would sell to the end consumer. So that was the way it went. And then sometimes even in between, you'd have between the distributor and the shop, you'd have your reps. Well, things have changed with the internet. It's made it possible for a lot of manufacturers to go directly to the end consumer, which brings the whole pricing structure down and makes it a little more difficult for companies like mine who distribute to actually get by. So what do? You go with the flow, and that's what we're doing. Knitters 30 years ago wanted novelty yarns. I know that sounds really strange, but that's really what they wanted. And the ironic thing is that some of the novelty yarns from back then were really quite beautiful. They were also really expensive. They're more expensive than the novelty yarns that are coming out now. When I look at our price lists from back then, I mean, we're talking about $12 to $18 a ball on some of these beautiful novelty yarns. But novelty yarns was what knitters wanted. And by no means did knitters want anything on a hank. They wanted everything on a ball or in a skein. And the shops were the same way. They didn't want hanks. They wanted balls and skeins. They didn't have to wind it for the end consumer, and the end consumer didn't have to wind it. Well, the indie dyer, excuse me, the indie dyer sort of brought a change in that because they don't or didn't have the facilities, or don't have the facilities, I should say, in general still, to wind something on a ball or put it on a skein. So value of yarns sort of switched, and it was, if it was on a ball or a skein, the value dropped, and if it was on a hank, it went up. So that is, that's sort of the main thing that I can think of that was different 30 years ago to today. Janet is a big fan of Schoppel, as am I. And I feel very fortunate that we get to distribute Schoppel here in the United States and Canada. Back in 2006, when I purchased the company, Gerhard Schoppel was manufacturing yarns for Clemens Zitron. Those are the Zitron yarns. They both use their names, their family names, like we do Skacel on our labels. Well, they sort of decided to go their own ways, and I was fortunate enough to be able to take on the Schoppel yarns as well as the Zitron yarns. And Gerhard Schoppel is an amazing individual, as is Clemens Zitron. But Schoppel's got this amazing sense of color that you can see in his yarns. The Zelba balls that he creates, the way he developed to actually make the ball, to make it exciting and show all the different colors that are in it. He's also quite the inventor and has invented machinery that actually produces a pre-felted yarn. And those pre-felts, such as I'm wearing one of them here, which is called Cashmere Queen, he has the patent on his machine and actually won an industry award for it over in Europe. So he's the only one who has it, the only one who has those yarns. There's also the Reggae, there's Pour, In Silk, there's quite a few of them, and they're just wonderful yarns. It's a roving that is just then felted, so it's a single ply, yet it's not as, I shouldn't say fragile, it's just more durable than your average single ply. And it does get a nice halo. When they're on the ball, the yarns really don't look that exciting. But don't let it fool you. You gotta knit with them, see the halo, and you'll be hooked. But that is how I got the Schoppel yarns. And so my best knitting tip is a very simple one that I use for everything. And that is when I'm casting on, and I usually use a long tail cast on, not always, but a vast majority of the time, I use 2 needles two of the same needles. So if I'm casting on to size 7s, I use 2 size 7s, and I cast on to those 2 size 7s as tight as I possibly can, and it's extremely consistent. And then when I'm done with my cast off, I pull one of the needles out, and then I've got just the perfect cast on for the right stitch size for a size 7 needle. That is something I've been doing, oh God, I don't even know who taught me that, probably my mother. But I've been doing it ever since I started knitting, as long as I can remember, and I've never had a cast on that was too tight. Two interesting things that I do that are not fiber related. Well, one is I love glass work. So I love doing glass fusing and actually lamp working. Now, the last couple of years have been really busy, so I haven't been doing much of it, but I really enjoy glass work. So that's one thing. And the other thing is I do hot yoga, Bikram's yoga, on a regular basis. I really like the heat. I know some people say, I can't do that in 105-degree heat. Well, I can, and I actually love it, and it does me a lot of good. And when I don't do it, that's when my body starts falling apart. So I've realized that now that I'm past the median age, I really need to take care of myself. So doing hot yoga is important to me, and I really enjoy it. Skacel has a lot of future plans. We want to bring about more new knitters, as many as we possibly can. That's what is the force behind last year's 10,000 New Knitters campaign that we did. And this year we're not going to do the 10,000 new knitters, but we are thinking of ways that we can create continuously more knitters for our industry. So that's really one of the important things in our future plans. The idea of the FlexiFlips is not my idea, nor is it anyone's idea from my company. There's actually a woman, a blogger in Germany. Her name is Sylvie Rush, and she is the one who came up with the idea of creating these 3 small needles with a little bend in them to make it a little bit easier to knit with. She's not very well known over here yet, but she's going to get there. She actually was raised in what was Eastern Germany until the wall came down, and the woman is very entertaining. She is extremely creative. I can't say enough good things about her, but her name is Sylvie Rush. She's the one who came up with the idea. She's the one who took it to Thomas Selter, who actually owns the Addy Company, and that Addy Company has been owned by his family for 190 years. We're actually going over to celebrate with him in a week. But 190 years, that's 6 generations. That's pretty impressive. Anyways, Sylvie Rausch is her name, and you can see her website listed below. I would say check her out.